The story begins as a guy nervously rides on a train. When he gets off, he begins to run desperately, but he's found by a group of assassins that somehow knows him. This group covers the area in smoke and the man begins attacking them while showing his insane fighting skills as he fends off several attackers. The attackers launch several blades at this guy and tries to kill him. So, seeing this, he pulls out a blade of his own to fight back. The attackers then use metal needles, but this guy has insane reflexes, catching them with his teeth and firing them back at the attackers. Unfortunately, this man is overwhelmed by their very large numbers. He is captured when a gadget takes hold of his neck and he's dragged by a terrifying looking man. This evil guy slams the man into the ground and uses his sword to finish him off. The attackers use a device to confirm that their target has been eliminated and they leave elsewhere. Elsewhere, a farmer named Joe enjoys life on the farm and eventually returns home to work on his motorcycle. He plays a game with his young son Kyle, who tried to sneak up on him while wearing a mask, but he catches him and tells his son that he has eyes on the back of his head too. Joe's wife Sarah shows up and says she can't believe how dirty Joe's face has gotten. Kyle explains that his mask is like the ones that the Oni wear, saying they are really bad people. Joe warns him that the Oni might think that he is one of them, but Kyle is sure that his big, strong dad will fight them if they come after him. Joe playfully says that he has to hurry up and finish fixing his motorcycle for when Kyle gets in over her head fighting the Oni. Later, a news report detailed how the man from earlier lost his life and Sarah seemed concerned that it might actually be the work of the Oni. Kyle is certain that it was them, but Sarah tells him it's time for him to go to bed. The kid says goodnight to his mother and Joe reminds him that his birthday is coming up. With Kyle fast asleep, Joe carefully checks the security cameras he has around his house and the farm. Sarah is concerned because of how the man was eliminated, and what's even more bothersome is that no information was found about who he is. Joe tells her that there is nothing to worry about and assures her that no one will find them out in the middle of nowhere. Sarah is most concerned about someone called the Reaper, but Joe explains that this can't be him since he always worked alone. The next day, we get a quick look of how careful Joe is about hiding their identity as he wipes away their fingerprints from a door handle after shopping in the store. The family of 3 then goes on enjoying their peaceful life like normal, and Joe does his best to be a good father as he cheers up his son. One night, it was reported that another person lost his life at the hands of a mysterious organization. They marked this with the last incident, so a large-scale investigation is underway to find out what happened. On Kyle's birthday, the loving family enjoys a nice cookout in the field. They all joke around while they sing songs, and Kyle blows out the candles on his favorite type of birthday cake. Kyle opens a present to reveal the video game, and Joe gives him a new helmet as well. Joe prefers this one over the scary Oni mask, so Kyle declares that he's no longer a bad guy. He now wants to be a hero. However, Sarah points out that she just likes seeing his normal face, and with this, the entire family shares a heartfelt hug. They couldn't be happier, so they all tell each other how much they love one another. That night, Joe gets up from bed. His wife asks what's the problem, but he calmly tells his wife to stay there. Joe makes his way downstairs where everything seemed fine. Just then, something appeared in the window and Joe was attacked. The attackers barge in, but Joe masterfully fought several of them off. His exceptional skill allowed him to take one of their weapons, and he used his sword to eliminate several of these men. While he was destroying one guy, Joe heard his son cry out to him. This caused Joe to instantly spring into action, and blocked an attacker who tried to stop him and absolutely destroyed this guy. Joe rushed to find his family, but another attacker fired 2 metal needles right through his neck. The determined Joe refused to let that stop him, so he crawled up the stairs. The paralyzing pain overwhelmed him and he saw a mysterious figure outside. However, Joe was then horrified when he saw Kyle and Sarah's lifeless bodies on the ground. Overwhelming shock filled Joe's body, and the evil-looking guy stated that Joe's wife put up a good fight. Joe, with blinding rage, charges at him but was stabbed in the back by another assassin. Joe dragged the attacker as he tried to make his way to his family, but the damage to his body was too much to overcome. The attackers found that someone must have alerted the authorities as police sirens could be heard in the distance. The leader, upon checking, confirmed that Joe was no longer alive, so they left just before the police arrived. The police arrived at the scene and were horrified to find the massacred family. Sometime later, the seemingly no longer alive Joe regained consciousness. His first thoughts were memories of his lifeless family, and he vomited solely from the overwhelming emotion consuming his body. The next time Joe woke up, he was in a hospital and the nurse urgently called for a doctor. Joe only said his wife's name and he passed out again. Joe eventually woke up and a doctor explained that he miraculously came back to life after the coroner had already pronounced him dead. Joe couldn't care less and just wanted to know about his wife and son. Unfortunately, he was told that they didn't make it. Outside, two people come to visit him. They were Mike and Emma from the FBI. They wanted help with their investigation, so they asked several questions about who the attacker might have been. Joe doesn't say a single word, but Mike can tell that he is getting very angry. He believes that this is probably the worst time to be asking him questions, so Mike just leaves his card. Mike tells Emma that it's just a hunch, but he believes that Joe knows who the attackers are. He decides that they will take turns watching him, and Emma is first up as she watches Joe on the roof. Joe has a memory to just a moment ago when he was taken to say goodbye to his family. The nurse found that he couldn't move Joe anymore, and it was because Joe put the brakes on the wheelchair. Joe shook with rage and couldn't bear to come any closer to his deceased family's bodies. Back on the roof, memories of his wife and son rush into his mind, and Joe begins to growl in anger. His rage reaches its boiling point, and he reaches for his wrist again, this time pulling out a metal needle. Joe pierces himself with it, and it does something strange to his body. Just then, Joe is attacked by several assassins. He is still filled with anger, so he goes berserk and expertly takes out several of the attackers. Joe shows overwhelming strength and precision as he somehow manages to take control of the fight. He then does some kind of jutsu and turns his body into black smoke. This move is incredibly powerful as it allows him to eliminate several assassins in one instant. Emma has no clue what's going on, but Joe doesn't want her to find out and knocks her out instead. The enraged Joe then continues his relentless attack and goes on to tear several more attackers to pieces. There are a great number of them, and Joe strangely fires a sword at the elevator. It turned out he did this as he uses a pole to defend himself and shoves all the remaining assassins into the elevator. Even though Joe is severely outnumbered, it becomes very clear that the assassins are trapped inside with him and not the other way around. Joe stands above all their corpses as he arrives at another floor and strikes fear into the hearts of remaining opponents. Mike wonders why Emma isn't answering his call and is shocked when he finds several corpses. Joe finishes up nearby, and he is found by the assassin leader. Memories once again find their way into Joe's mind, so he attacks the leader with fury. This leader is obviously not like the others, though, as he defends himself well and even manages to put a gadget around Joe's neck. Joe quickly frees himself, but the fight continues to be evenly matched. Joe eventually uses jutsu again, and it allows him to land a devastating attack. Joe quickly follows this up with even more strikes, and the fight is over soon after. Joe demands to know how they found him and his family and how they knew it was really him. The leader mockingly remarks that Joe can change his appearance as much as he wants, but he will never be able to escape his fate. Joe then shocks this guy and removes his disguise. Joe doesn't say a single word from here and just ends the leader's life. Joe then goes to see his family. He can hardly bear to look, and he collapses to his knees afterwards. Joe returns home and drills a hole into a wall. He removes a box he had hidden, and we see that it contains several items, including a mask. Joe stares at a picture that once again floods his mind with memories of his family. Joe then looks at his family home just before he sets it on fire. Joe watches as his once love-filled and peaceful life burns away, and he puts on the mask. Like and comment if you enjoy this video. Subscribe to my channel for more anime recaps, and tell me what anime recap you like to see next in the comments below.